Hello, hello, hello. We haven't talked for a while, didn't we?
Yes, it's been a minute, Les, other than our planning sessions for our exciting thing coming up.
Yeah. Um, so you've seen today, sent it to you a proper fish and chips meal, which awaits for you. That was interesting to see the Americans, and I'm wondering if it's a real a treat for them with the curry sauce, or is it just a taste of European potatoes, which is, I guess, is quite different to the American ones. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and find out. I gotta see about that, and I gotta see about the mushy peas. I've never had a mushy pea, so he seemed pretty enchanted with it.
Yeah. Well, but the exact cipher is literally on the corner from me, so you're definitely gonna be there as a first
That's awesome.
lunch. Because you're arriving in the morning, you have breakfast, and then we're gonna go for lunch. So
Okay, that sounds great.
for those who are listening, we're talking about a video on Facebook about American people eating for the first time proper fish and chips in our local seafair chip shop.
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you, changing subject completely. So we both watched our students grading, and I think we both
Yeah.
have a kind of similar approach to it. I have to say that I stole it from you after watching Rick Ellis BJJ stuff. Thank
Hmm.
you very much for recommending that channel. It's a really, really nice channel.
His stuff is so great. His stuff is really good. He's been posting a lot lately, so there's a
Yeah.
ton of great stuff.
It's another person who annoys me in a positive way with the high quality of a content which I seems to be not able to achieve. But you
Dude, your stuff's
yourself,
looking great.
you and Rick have it, I think, the background in arts and recording and stuff. So you have it of a curve. I'm just learning on the spot. So yeah. So
Yeah.
change from grading to display. How do you feel about that?
I love it. I think that there's a place for grading, and when, especially as you get into higher ranks where much is given, much is expected, I think grading is necessary. I think you still have to do it. At least that's my take. So even when we do demonstrations at the higher levels for us, the third Q to Shodan, your brown belt to black belt, it's a requirement. So you got to do both. You got to do a grading and you got to do a demonstration. But the gradings for us tend to be personal and private and not in front of everyone.
Hmm.
And I like the idea of celebrating people, and that stood out to me when we went to an all white belt system. Obviously, we've kind of turned the corner and come back from that a bit. But when we went to an all white belt system, if someone was graded and promoted and you weren't there when it happened, you might not even realize it happened. So,
Hmm.
for people that who they want, the martial arts is very internal and very important to them. That's fine. But for people who kind of need that external motivation, or they, kind of want to be validated by their peers, it's not really a good thing. So I like the idea of showing what someone can do in front of the class, and letting everybody cheer for them and support them, and see all their hard work. You realize your peers have been seeing you work, and when you get to hear from them that, hey, I've seen what you've been doing, I've seen how far you've come, and you did great today. I think that's an amazing thing, and we need positive experiences on the mat.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So I had a very similar experiences to you. We went no belt system as well for about 2 years. I must have been about 8 years ago. And after 2 years, we went back to gradings because I think for European people, it is very important to have that validation and physical representation of your work. So the belts work much better.
For
We
sure.
have as well only four, five color belts like yourself. You've got four, isn't it? Or something like that.
Yeah, white, green, brown, black.
Yeah, so we've got a white, yellow, green, brown, and black. So one more than you, but it makes the job much easier. But it still gives people that reward system they need. Everybody likes to be rewarded, right? And I as well agree with you that that display is something that people really waiting for, and both the ones who grade it and the ones who've been supporting it is kind of get together to celebrate that person's achievement, and it just builds the whole community together, I think.
Yeah. And it can be really inspirational. It's not uncommon to hear afterwards people being like, "Oh, I want to work on my stuff. I want to go start practicing for my thing." And I think seeing your peers do it, you're like, "Man, I want to do that."
Mm.
And I think that's really cool. So it can be inspirational. It can kind of add. So while it's a validating thing for that individual, I think it does a lot for the group too.
Yeah, I totally agree. You can see that the camaraderie is getting better, and people supporting each other. And although I'm not doing a grading as such, like you said, you're doing that. You've got a first secret grading and then the open display. I'm just assessing them through the year, and then they getting the belt. Although what I do different a
Yeah.
little bit is that I've decided that because we are members of the bigger group, international group, so I'm getting my students doing display in front of external teachers. Not that today, they have the grade, they're doing display, but it's a valuable feedback for me when people look at them and say, well, listen, he's lacking on this, he's lacking on that. That gives me the
Yeah.
information for me where I might have made mistakes and what I have to improve in the future, not necessarily the student.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that testing and grading, while it's useful for the student, it's about the teacher, right? It's your
Mm,
chance to see, have I taught you what you should know? If I ask you to show me something and you can't, that's not generally your fault. That's my fault. Where did I fail to make you prepared for this? And so I think that is really good. I think that the grading is really important for teachers and the external teachers, people outside that aren't seeing it every day, is useful. That's a requirement for Shodan, is that when you test, there's people from other places, other black belts that we bring in, and that's for two things. I mean, one, that's going to be a little more pressure, right? How do you handle that? How do you deal with that? But also, what's their feedback? What do they hear from you? What do they see in your students? Like you said, what are they lacking? What are they doing well? And so that you get that outside perspective.
mm. Yeah, so for me, kind of, it was a eureka moment. When we had I think in 2008, 2009, we had a seminar in Poland, and students of my friend were doing stuff, and she couldn't do anything. No, she done excellently technically, but in
Sure.
applications, she had a group of people who didn't go along, and in their training at the time, it was very compliant training. So
Oh, yeah.
she was very surprised, and she was really crying from kind of frustration that she's doing everything she done. It always worked. Suddenly, it didn't work.
Hmm.
So she passed the provisional test. I think it was for brown belt at the moment at the time.
Hmm.
But what I liked the most, it was when we done the assessment, and I was part of that assessing people. Her teacher said, "Don't punish her, because it's not her fault. It is all my fault. I've seen it now. I've been teaching wrong. We're going back to the drawing board. We're changing everything, right?" And literally 2 years later, we've seen him, and they just come up all geared up from head to toes, full armor suits, full contact all the time. And he said it was best for his school to learn that his things don't work, and he had a clear plan what we need to change, how we need to change. So that's how I'm viewing this now. Every assessment of my students is my opportunity to change things for better, if that makes sense. Long story, but
Yeah, I love that. What a healthy environment if that's how it went down, you know?
mm.
Like a lot of places could, out of ego, not respond that way, and I think that that's such a healthy and valuable way that went. I think that's fantastic. We need
Uh,
that kind of thing.
and how such a bravery from the teacher who is like, I think he's seventh dan or something, saying, "Hey, totally my fault. Things need to change. We're starting now." and he
Hmm.
done it. So huge respect for Stefan. Stefan, if you're listening, you're a top man.
Yeah, yeah. I say that too, Stefan. That is an amazing thing you did, and I think that it's incredible. A
Mm,
lot of people won't. They'll hide in whatever it is. We see that's where we get all the McDojo stuff, right? Is
mm,
people that believe what they believe, and they won't change when they see something else. They just make a story up and make it up and don't do anything. So people like Stefan who have decided I'm going to take responsibility, take ownership, and change it. That's a school to train at.
definitely, definitely. So how are yours? What's the feedback from your students when you change the grading system to a display and all the changes you done? Positive, negative? No, not seeing the difference.
I think it's still a little bit early. I think it's been positive, especially from the people who have watched it. I think it's been really positive. For the people doing it, we've done two now, and we're working on the third one. So it was new, right? So they kind of didn't know what to expect, and they hadn't seen one before. At least not in our school. They've seen, I told them about the the Rick Ellis and the Roy Dean
Mm,
demos and how those work, and said, go look at those. This is kind of the idea. You can go look at the one that I did for my blue belt, and say this is how a demonstration can go, and what it's kind of like and what's inspiring me about it. And I think they were very optimistic about it. They were excited to try, but
mm,
also maybe a little bit trepidatious because it's like, oh man, I've never done this. This is new. Um, especially when you're the first one to go, you're like, man,
mm.
how's this going to go? But when they were done, they loved it. I think it was incredibly positive with the way everybody cheered for them and just the community afterwards. I think it's all positive. You get some people that are nervous, going, I don't like to get up in front of people and do all this kind of stuff, and there's the concerns that you expect, but also that's the kind of the pressure that we need, and maybe sometimes what's missing when you don't have that pressure is this ability to face those fears and come out on the other side realizing that you can and that you are completely capable. And if your students trust you and they pay attention, then they'll realize you're not going to set them up for failure. If they're not ready to do it, you're not going to do it, right? You're going to work with them. You're going to build them up and get them ready. And that's an important thing. I think it wouldn't work any other way. If you just said, yeah, you can go do it, and just anytime you want, pick it, we'll set it up, we'll do it. Where there is a strong chance for failure, then I think that would be crushing and not good, right? It could be demoralizing. And so to see it, to know what it looks like, to have an understanding of it, to spend time with it, and know that your instructor thinks you're ready, I think is worth a lot.
Yeah, for sure. But from my students, saying that even the display, it's a nerve-wracking because you've got that external
Hmm.
people watching. So it's kind of you not having a pressure of, oh, I'm gonna be failed or whatever, but still you don't want to embarrass yourself. So it is still
Yeah.
very, very, very frustrating. And we had the people, I don't know if you noticed, but Martin completely gas out because he tried to show
Hmm.
yourself so much that
Right.
puffed out because of the stress.
Yeah, but
But
that's hard though.
it is.
That's when you're showing that heart.
Mm. Yeah, and the part of the examination is competition. I don't know if you do competitions for your guys or you don't.
We don't. If people are interested in, I support that. We're not particularly competition focused. I think for competition, competition has an element of a game, right? There's rules. In order to win, you have to match those rules,
Mm.
and in order to be really good, if you want to just do competition just to say you've done it, that's fine. If you want to do it because you want to be good, then you also have to get good at the things that competition
Mm.
that do well in competition specifically, which depending on your goals might not necessarily be in alignment. For me, it was never in alignment with my goals. And you only get so much time to train, so I like to train towards the things that are important to me. And so when I get people that want to, I encourage that, I support it. We've had people do really well in competition, and I think that it's really good, especially when you're young, because
Mm.
you kind of have a lot of time afterwards. You can kind of do that. You can focus on those things, and then over time, I think your training emphasis a lot of time changes. And when you start young, you have plenty time to have different pursuits throughout your martial career, different things that you're interested in, and you chase them differently. Um, and I think that's really cool. And if you're into that, I think you should chase those individual pursuits.
Well, we don't have a requirement to do the competition, but I strongly encourage people to go at least once to see the effects of
Yeah.
adrenaline on your system. And the guys done it, and I'm super proud of Danny because Danny, who is autistic, and most of you guys who listen to this and watching knows Danny from my posts. When he
Hmm.
came to us, he wasn't able to stay with us on his own without his mom and brother. 10 years forward, he just passed his black belt last year. He's doing competitions, going there and smashing the kata competitions and winning
That's
medals.
amazing.
It's just, how could you not award a black belt for just that?
Yeah, just for that growth and that sheer thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's one of my requirements as well for it's not official requirement, but if you put the effort, you're gonna be graded. It might not be perfectly technically, but if
Hmm.
you put that effort consistently for 10 years, if that doesn't give you a black belt, I don't know really what. Because at the moment so much differences in, especially in karate, you've got so many different black belts and different organizations that is actually just a verification for your group, kind of validation for your group, what you achieved within the group. It's not a kind of across the board. And I see the same happening now in
Yeah.
BJJ, isn't it?
Yeah. We knew it was coming, right? Like everybody got very excited about the BJJ belt system, and for good reason, But we knew it was coming. Like karate's had the same system, judo's had the same system. Like um, over time, other elements get introduced, and other people do things differently. One group does it differently from another, and you could argue that this group has a better idea of what that should look like versus what another group does, and over time it waters down, and it doesn't become just an individual thing. And I think BJJ will go through that just like everything else.
Switching to BJJ a little bit. What age have you been when you started BJJ? I tell you where I'm going with this, because I
Okay,
just
okay.
I just returned to BJJ after 10 years break, and my
Yeah.
fourth session, I managed to broke my toe, so I'm off now.
No. Dang.
All pure accident. Nobody was mean to me.
Sure.
It's just I've been moved from the
Yeah.
guard somehow. I don't even know how. Body went. Toe didn't get the message. Stayed where it was, and now it's really painful. But my question is, what changes have you had to make, if any, with a training, being an older person starting
Oh
a
man.
other
Yeah, I can definitely
activity?
talk about that.
Because for
Um,
me, it's I started a couple of sessions thinking, yeah, I can do it, and I thought, shit, I'm 44. I don't want to recover for 3 weeks after doing one session, so I need to ease off. So my commitment to training is now tap quick, tap early, stay safe.
yeah, yeah, tap early, tap often, right? Um, yeah, I probably started late 20s,
Just
like
a
very late,
baked
late
chicken.
20s, around 30. But it was very minimal because it was we had a lineage so we have my instructor trained Okinawa Kempo. There was an event where they were changing the head of the Okinawa Kempo organization, and that was happening. It was being hosted at our school, and there were people that came from all over. And one of the guys that did that, he was an Okinawa Kempo guy, Kabuto guy. He also was training with Hoist Gracie, and so he started working with my instructor, and we started doing some of that stuff. And so it was always kind of on the side. We weren't really rolling. We were practicing, drilling different techniques, kind of very, at least for us initially, it's kind of very kind of karate approach, right? Like here's your technique, get your partner, rep through it, compliant reps, this kind of stuff, and then maybe we'd introduce some rolls or things. So there was a good period of time where that's what it was like. I wasn't in a jujitsu school. So it wasn't the same. I wouldn't call it the same. So I really didn't start until just like I consider my actual start in jujitsu only a few years old, and I just turned 40. So I've only got I was in late 30s, really, if you think about it. I was late 30s when I started. And I think it definitely makes a huge difference because your stamina is one thing, right? You hope that you've got a great tank and you can do stuff to deal with that. Like you don't have to not have a tank just because you're older. But you don't recover as fast as you did. Injuries, if you do have an injury, you're not back and going, a week later, you might be recovering from that for a while. You might have things that your body, because of your life experience, your body might have things it doesn't do well anymore, or, injuries from other things that you're more likely to have accumulated. And it definitely, I can feel it. I can feel the difference being that. And I've got older athletes on the mat with me. I was having a conversation with one this weekend where he's like, man, I don't know if this is for me. You got these guys with a 30-year age gap, and it's so hard to, like, you go to a roll and it's just impossible. There's so much strength. There's so much just brute, young athleticism. And we talked about it, it's like, hey, first off, you're where you were and where you are now, like you're doing so much different than you did. And usually if you're failing as an older athlete, it's because you're trying to match the pace and tempo of the younger athlete rather than using strategy and tactics that match that address those things while considering your attributes. And I'm sure you felt that too, that you can't just go do what the younger Les would have done. You're probably not scrambling as quick as you did in your younger wrestling days and stuff, but you still have things that you know how to do that you can do and prevent people from things, take and create other situations that work within your skill set and your body. And it's definitely different, but I think it's completely doable.
I'm laughing because it seems to be that only wrist locks left for me, and I know that in BJJ not everybody is happy about it.
Yeah, not everybody loves a wrist lock. Man, wrist locks are so good though, and they're
That-
everywhere.
Under stress and panic, that seems to be the only thing that works for me. And catching guys much better than me on a wrist lock because they don't expect it, I guess.
Right, right.
Yeah, but yeah, it is difficult, and you're right. You just try to kind of match their pace, and they're just killing you. So for me, the most things that I have to give up is people kind of being much heavier than me, going the good pace and having a much
Yeah,
better skills than I do, and I'm just laying there under them. It's just like I need to tap up because there's nothing left in the tank,
yeah.
which is frustrating.
It is frustrating, and I'm interested. It's been a while. I mean, since the accident, I haven't been able to be really on the mat at all. I'm not allowed to be on the mat at all right now, especially like jujitsu particularly. And so I've been watching, and it's like, man, thinking about just not doing and then going back in. It's been on my mind a lot because hopefully I'm not too far out from being able to do that. I'm gonna have to be all taped up and make sure that I don't. I'm not more vulnerable and taking more risks than I should. But I've been thinking about it, and it's like, you know what? I'm like, yeah, I've also been off the mat. There even basic exercises I haven't been allowed to do. So my general stamina and stuff like that's just down. I know that it's going to be down. My energy levels are going to be down until I can kind of build some of that back up. And I was thinking about it the other day while I was driving home. I was like, you know what? I think when I go back, my goal is going to be to lose. Just go in, flow as well as I can. And that sounds weird. My goal is not to lose, right? Like it's not truly. But my goal is to be allowing myself to lose. Flow at my pace, learn what I can learn, do what I can do, but do it in a way where I'm probably, while I figure all that out, I'm going to get tapped. And I need to be okay with that. I need to be okay with the fact that, yep, I was a little bit late. I should have transitioned earlier, and I was a little bit late, so they got what they got. And the only way to recover right now is going to be explosive, but I'm not going to do that. So instead, okay, they got the tap. Let's go again. And allowing that failure is kind of my plan, rather than trying to ramp up. Because in the past, I've been capable of locking things down. I do have strength. I do have experience and some ability to kind of know when to pump the brakes, how to hold some things, that kind of stuff. And instead of doing that, which is very tiring, and I won't have the grip strength for it, instead just work with the idea of if I miss the timing, then I tap.
Mm.
If I miss the timing and you don't get it, then obviously I won't tap. But if I miss the timing and I can't recover, then I tap. Because I think timing and momentum are so important. And most of the time, if I find myself in a place where I'm really struggling with a younger athlete, it's probably because there was a good time to do what I needed to do, and there was then when I actually did it, which was too
Mm.
late. And you can't learn that without failure.
Mm. Yeah, for me it's just failure all the time. I have, I have not much of experience in BJJ. When we're standing up, I'm okay. I'm happy till we get down on the floor. But for me,
Yeah.
very annoying at the moment is which I need to work on is people jumping straight into the guard, and I'm standing there and have to attack, right? I'm not gonna be attacking on the floor, so I need to go to the level and go in, and they always catch me on something because I've got a stupid habit of walking into the traps. They're setting up to me
Right.
for
They're
me,
setting
but
traps. Yeah.
yeah. So,
That's
but
why they
yeah,
pull guard, right?
at least I'm starting to realize when I'm walking into it, I see it. Oh shit, I done it again. so, so I'm learning
Yeah.
in that thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
allowing yourself that you don't need to prove anything, be vulnerable, do your do time to move up, and things start going in. But it's nice to be a white belt again and be shit at something, as I say. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I think the most interesting times, even my instructor right now, he's ninth dan karate, and he is, training Aikido. And he's like, I
Mm.
like it because I get to be a student. I get to go do that. It's a bunch of stuff that I would normally do it differently, or I would do this, or I would do that. But to go and be a student at that school and just focus on something new and different and just focus on taking that information in. He's like, I love it. It's interesting to me versus 20, 30 years later on the mat of the thing you've always done with the people you've always done it with or whatever. It's not the same. Sometimes it's nice to have a change.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. It's something new and keep my mind fresh and body challenged as well because we're getting used to it, to the sets of exercises and the physical activity we do, and then you start switching to something else, and then different muscles firing up. So that's a nice challenge as well.
Yeah. And jujitsu, speaking specifically of jujitsu is a workout.
It is.
Like if you're moving well with it, you're probably moving in ways that you don't normally move, and you're targeting muscles you don't normally target. You're using stamina and cardio in different ways. It's super fun and super great for the body, and it will definitely wear you out.
Mm. But the question come to my mind after
Hmm.
our conversation of the Patreon, guys. If you wanna have a no adverts on the podcast and see some extra stuff, check out my Patreon page, and you can help me out in creating those. But on Patreon, I
I'm a
posted.
patron over there, and I can tell you Les has some great stuff in there, and it's worth it. You should check it out.
Thank you very much. So we've been talking about a shuto from a couple of katas, and that it's not a necessary a strike. And
Hmm.
you're doing grappling arts as well. You do throw, you do stuff. Um, from a position of the being grappler, that makes more sense, right? It's a control mechanism instead of a chopping head off. It just if you don't do the grappling arts, it's very difficult to imagine it. That's what I
I
think.
would say that grappling arts has massively changed my understanding of karate. I mean, it's historically, when you dig into the history, you realize that like grappling was a big part of the history throughout the ages.
Yeah.
It's undeniable the history is there. And when you start looking at it, a lot of things that didn't make sense make more sense, especially all of that, the hand positions and the different things. 100% grappling has a strong influence. It has radically changed my interpretation and understanding of karate, like 180 degrees.
Yeah, same for me. It's just it's very difficult to imagine what people are saying about it. At least that's what I understand, how I understand it. If you never experience that grab, and actually the quote, I'm quoting our friends from a conversation on karate. Greg, I think we had a seminar together, and I told Greg, I said, "Oh, we're going to show you something." He said, "Wow, you can just feel it when somebody done grappling. You can feel it in a touch that somebody
Yeah.
was grappling and struggle. Is that pure, not primitive, but the primal feeling of, you need to hold that body, because if you don't, they're just gonna move away or do something. So it's a kind of this different way of gripping, I think. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree with that, and I want to speak to that when I visit. That's something that's on my mind a lot. Especially the feel and stuff. So I've got kind of some discussion points planned to talk about that. With When it comes to a lot of the striking application that I've seen over the years, something stands out to me, which is that it feels like most people's interpretation, and this is terrible generalization, please don't, it's a feeling, right? It's not, I'm not doing this off of actual numbers and statistics, but it just feels like most people, when it comes to the striking applications, and in a lot of applications, most people's interpretation of what the application of karate and the application specifically of kata is off of the very first thing that happens. And I fundamentally disagree. People are like, well, so if you go do this, and if this happens, so the person does this, well, what if they do that? And most of the time, these things are coming from, okay, I'm standing from here to you, and you go to do this, and then I do this because you did that. Okay, that's fine. Except it always happens as though it's the first thing. So the fundamental flaw that I see is that it always happens as though it's the very first thing. You're in this situation, and the very first thing they do is this, and here's how you use the kata to deal with that thing. When I don't believe that at all. I think the principles being shown should be able to be used at any point, and most of the time they're most useful after you're already touching hands with somebody. When you've already made contact with them, then a lot of this stuff makes more sense. And well, how would you know to do that? Well, you know to do that because you can feel it, because you're touching them. You're not 3 feet away and going to magically interpret faster than they can act. Reaction is always slower than action. You're not going to magically interpret and do this perfect thing flawlessly. That only works in compliant training. Instead, you got to recognize that most of your application is going to happen. Maybe it happens at the beginning, but it's probably going to happen somewhere in the middle,
Mm.
and or towards the end. Ideally, you're hoping that the thing that you're doing is an ending, right? You hope, but it's not always true. You need things to get you to that ending, and when you do that, you have all the context you need to know to do that thing and to apply those principles, because you have that connection and that contact. And especially when you get into that grappling range, and I can point out all kinds of videos of long range things that I'm speaking specifically of Eskrima right now. There's a thing called the Dog Brothers, where people get together to swing sticks. They call it higher learning through harder contact. And it's gnarly. They put on fencing masks, they grab a stick, and they go to town. Within a few moves, the arts are known for being long-range, weapons-based arts. And when guys go hard, within a few moves, they're grappling, because the only way to make it stop is to grab that person and try to make it stop and be close enough that you can't hit. And I think fights go that way. If you think you're going to dance out of range and then stay there and solve things, you're not. Either you're going to get in close to shut down what they're doing, or they're going to get in close to try to shut down what you're doing. Either way, now you're close, now you're grappling, and now your application makes sense.
Mm. I totally agree with you, and I think the only change, I would say that, if you're specifically training all the time to stay out of range, so using your tools as a range keeping, it's possible, but you have to be focused on it, and you're using that only punches and
Do,
stuff.
do you think so? Because I want to agree with that, but I think the grappling tools are still necessary, because sometimes, and not just grappling, I think your closer range tools are still necessary, because sometimes you have to use those to get back to your long range where you like to be.
Mm.
I think it's hard to be perfect at staying at range. And so you need tools that can allow you to get back to the range you want to be if you prefer a longer range. But I think it's hard to be good enough to never be in close range.
Oh yeah, I would never say never, but you can.
Yeah.
I think with the untrained opponent, you can keep them at bay till you can escape. I should say that because for me, all the techniques are kind of leading to the way when I can escape from kata as well. So every
Yeah.
step is me finding a way to escape instead of being involved. So depend how you look at it, but there's never. That's why we're training such a broad martial arts because there's never 100% result of what you're doing, and you have to have tools for everything. And I think that's one
That's right.
one thing that should make you go and do explore other martial arts because if you don't know what to expect, you're doomed, which we've seen on the UFC 1, 2, 3, 10. That if you're not aware of rules and even no rules with the rules, you're just doomed. If you
Yeah.
not know what to expect, you just doomed.
Yeah. It's true. Um, and there's a lot to be said between for the difference between consensual and non-consensual and symmetrical and asymmetrical. Something that's on my mind a lot lately is the concept of asymmetrical training, asymmetrical sparring. One of the ways that I think sparring fails us is it puts two people with similar skill sets
Mm.
and approaching trying to deal with each other. And if you do that, one of the first things that you do is, at least a part of you, 60-40, 50-50, something like that, at least a part of you is ready to defend what they try while also trying to do what you do. And both of you are doing that. And so people wonder, well, why doesn't my stuff work? And it's like, well, because that person is waiting for you to do it. They know you're going to try something. They might even know you specifically if it's somebody you sparred with before. And so they're waiting for it. And of course, they're shutting it down. So it's harder to overcome when someone's ready for you. Whereas asymmetrical, and this is going into our demonstration, I'm working very specifically into our grading and demonstrations for the brown belts that we're going to be spending time with asymmetrical sparring. That you're sparring with someone who has a different goal than you. It's really simple concept is, okay, a striker sparring a grappler. Your goal, the grappler's goal is to get you to the ground in this scenario. And the striking goal is to maintain range and use your striking to keep them at bay or to land devastating hits. Well, it's going to look very different when two people are trying to accomplish two very different things.
Mm.
Because now it's not a dance back and forth of who's just better at that one thing, but also do some training with the military, our local National Guard, and we did some of that. And I said, here's the deal: if you train consensus, like if you guys are doing these things that we're doing, the stuff that I'm training you with, and then you can try to just see who can do it better to each other. A, it's going to be very hard, and B, it's going to become very energetic, very tiring because you're just going to lock up and you're going to struggle and you're going to fight and it's going to be brute strength, brute strength, brute strength. And so it was really important to me that when we did have them spar, that one person be only an aggressor, not trying to defend themselves at all, just trying to be aggressive, so that that other person had to overcome that. But usually what happens, and I know you see it, you see people spar, they come in, they clash for a minute, and they come back out to reassess and reattack.
Hmm.
But when you look at violence, when someone intends to do harm, they never back out, reassess, and go back in.
Mm.
They go in and they go in again and go in again, and their goal is 100%. I will end this. And the things that you're able to do, the application, the techniques, the things that sometimes don't work suddenly work really well, and the things that you're able to do are more possible because of the fact that that person isn't trying to constantly shut them down. And in my mind, that's realistic. If someone's goal is just to harm you non-consensually, there's no part of them that's trying to figure out how to deal with you. Because in their mind, the only thing that's going on here is you're dealing with them.
Mm. Very interesting concept. Yeah, we do not to as such a degree, but I'm still in this and I'll be trying with my guys. But we do, one's doing just striking, the other one's trying to just control the person. So we do
Yeah,
vary that stuff and give different
that's
targets and stuff
great.
like that. Yeah,
I
but
think we need more of that. I think we need
yeah,
more of that.
for sure. And I in kind of testing the environment, you said, we know each other in the dojo. That's why I love when people coming to my dojo and when we're going to the dojo and have a test and sparring matches, of course friendly and with safety, but even just having somebody you never spar between with
Yeah.
makes the job so much more difficult. And group of 10 of us who knows each other, when we spar every training, is a bit different than going somewhere and having, oh wow, I don't know what you're gonna do, so I'm gonna prepare myself, for sparring and fighting a bit more consciously.
Yeah. It's a piece of training that you don't always get, which is the part where you have to make an assessment, decide to do something, and then do that thing all in that moment. When you know someone and you know your school and you know, because let's face it, inside of a school or a class or even a particular art, you have particular strategies and tactics that you're going to use. You have all these ways of kind of being prepared ahead of time. And something we don't get to train as much, which you are getting to in the thing you're describing, is I have to make these assessments real time. I
Mm,
don't have any information yet. I need to take in this information. I need to process it and build a plan and adapt that plan as necessary because I don't have data. And that's a thing that we need that we don't always have. So I think when you have those situations like you're describing, that's an excellent part of training that you don't normally get.
mm. So guys, if you want to more on the subject, come to a Brewing Budo seminar in June, and myself
Yeah.
and Ken and Christian gonna be talking things like that. We're gonna grab the tea, coffee, or whatever you want, and sit down and explore that side of martial arts, because I think it's underperformed in the martial arts. I think everybody focuses so much on just do stuff, do kata, copy, do this, and not much is the philosophical aspect, concepts being talked about, because we don't have time. We're training like twice a week, so there's no time to
Yep.
sit down actually and chat about it. And I think through conversation, we can unlock the learning patterns that are not always accessible via training, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I know for me, a lot of my perspectives and philosophies have come through more conversations, discussions, and that kind of stuff than ever physically touching hands with people because I have not trained a long time. I love this stuff. I'm a nerd for it, but I haven't really been in major altercations and things myself. Ideally, you hope that you keep a good head on your shoulders and this stuff gives you the ability to not end up in those situations. So it's really important that you learn from people who have. And rather than being in those situations, you get a lot out of discussions with people. And so a lot of the ways that I've been informed are by taking that time to discuss concepts with people who have different understandings or different experiences and pull that into your training. How do I use what I'm getting from you, that your experiences that you've had, and how do I incorporate those? I think it's such a valuable thing.
For sure. I want to touch on something I heard from your conversation with conversation on karate, which I recommend to listen as well, about not being missed, but not being necessary for the dojo.
Uh-huh.
Ouch!
Yeah.
That must be painful.
Hard truth, right? Hard
Yeah,
truth.
yeah. Can you tell more about
Yeah.
it on my channel then? Because I
Yeah.
was thinking about it, and in my dojo, it probably everything would fall because there's nobody who wants to teach. I have literally no people who wants to take over, do teaching, which is fine. Fine, everybody's got their own ways,
Sure.
and I'm not forcing anybody. But I think it will collapse. But like you said, I think you mentioned that if you've got a very small dojo, it's a different story, and I've got a tiny dojo, so.
What I've noticed, I was just having a conversation with one of these people who has been helping me teaching. I was having this conversation, what that feels like. And to me, it feels what it's felt like for me lately is kind of the passing of the torch, right? What it must have felt like for my instructor to let me start teaching more, running the classes, relying on me more, and kind of, okay, at what point does it become where they're doing it now and you're not? And so it's been interesting, you kind of become the grandfather, right? Like, okay, well now the child is taking over, and teaching the grandkids instead of you. When people come in, now you have these people in the middle who are taking over. And I love that particular analogy. There was Bobby Taboada, an incredible Filipino martial artist, and he said, when people call me the Grandmaster, he said, how do you feel about that? And he said, I think it's fine because it's like, you come in and you are the child, and you have your father. So if you're teaching, then you're the father to the children. And then when those children start teaching, then you're like the grandfather to those children who are teaching the grandchildren. And that's kind of what it feels like. So now these students that are my students, that I now have students of mine who are better suited to teach to their students, and it kind of becomes more of that generational thing. I think it's very natural to happen. And you could argue certain things like, well, if you're not around, it's going to become different. It's no longer yours, it's going to become someone else's. So in order for it to be yours, you have to be around. And I guess you could argue that, and that could have some truth to it. But the reality is, in my case, what I'm seeing is that I've been preparing students for a long time to understand my philosophies, my strategies, my tactics, my concepts of technique and application and the way things work, and how to teach, how to approach the art, its history, different things. And what I'm seeing is that it worked, that they have those things, and that they're able to do them. They no longer need me to tell them how to do it. They have all of that, and they're able to pass it directly without my influence or my interaction. And it's obviously, it's worth saying, they don't feel that way. They still want me to be around. They still want my input. They still have things that they'd like to get from me. I still have things I'd like to give to them. But if I was gone tomorrow, I know that they could do this. And when you look at those other students who are now learning from them, they're not running over going, man, hey, I wish I was still learning from you. Like, whatever. They're going, I'm getting what I need. Their needs are being met by these students. And there's that ego part of you that wants to be at the center, that this is your thoughts, this is something you've put a lot of time and energy and investment into, and so there's the ego wants to stay the core of that. But the truth is, that's just the ego, and that it should have the ability to grow beyond you, and it should have the ability to stand on its own without you. And that takes time if you don't have people. I mean, of the years that I've taught, I can count on one hand the number of people who are prepared to do that. And most of it not because whether they want to or not, even just prepared. I would argue, I of the people who are teaching now, if I wasn't around at least doing the logistical stuff of running the dojo and making it as a business, and as taking care of the rent and doing all that kind of stuff, I don't know that they want to take over and do all of that. I don't know if they want to teach full time. So really, when you look at just the part of being prepared to pass the art on and to teach, out of all of the students that I've taught, it's a very small number who have even been around long enough to adequately be prepared and have enough of the system and enough of the understanding to even step into that role, even if they wanted to, whether or not they want to, just to have been around enough to be prepared to.
But besides the ego being touched, it must be immensely proud moment to see that, yes, I done a great job, and the students doing well, and they can do it, and it's just like I don't know, I would be very, very proud if my students step up to,
I love it. Yeah.
especially
It's amazing.
in circumstances like yours, that you didn't choose to step out, you just had to step out, and they just chosen
Yeah.
to step in and keep going. Because you could have a stop for 6 months and not doing anything because nobody was teaching for you, right?
Yeah, 100%. And then I would have been going on, what do I do with the building that I no longer have because we couldn't pay the rent, or like you'd have all these other things. Um, yeah, it's incredibly amazing. I'm incredibly proud, and it's wonderful to watch. And honestly, it's a different perspective. It's giving me the ability to see things that I couldn't see when I was focused on being the person delivering the information. being able to see things in those students that I couldn't see, even though it was right in front of me, because I wasn't giving them the opportunity to be doing it, because I was doing it, and to just generally see and get a different sense of things. It's it's fantastic, and proud is definitely the word. I'm incredibly proud of how healthy it is, with or without me, and how well these people have taken. You finally get a chance to truly see how well have you taken the things that I've taught you. I can ask you and I can see you in small doses, but when you take over full time and then are teaching whole classes on your own and preparing lesson plans and deciding what you're going to do with people and when to promote people and all that kind of stuff, you really get to see just how much have you taken on what I've given you, what is there, what's not there, and incredibly proud. I couldn't ask for a better thing.
And did you notice that because sometimes with the circumstances like that, you've got the leaders who you would never expect to be a leaders. Did you have anybody like that who you didn't never thought that, oh, you're gonna take over, you're gonna be teaching on your own, you're lacking of this, but when the circumstances arrived, it's like, yes, you stepped up, you
Sure.
drove, you are the leader now.
I won't say that I specifically have. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's always really cool when that happens. I have seen it over time. The people who have previously felt that way have stepped up in little ways along the way, and I see them do more of it now, but I kind of cheated and knew about it from the times before when they'd done it. So I haven't had specifically that thing happen, but I know what you mean, and I think that it definitely does. It definitely does happen.
Yeah, because I kind of been put in that. I never thought I'm going to be teaching. I always lacked confidence and I never did. And things happened in our dojo. My teachers turned to me and he said, "Well, I'm not going to be teaching anymore. If you want me to teach, you have to create a group." So I was like, "Well, I do want to train, so I need to figure out the way how we can train and he can come and teach." So I've got a couple of friends. I said, "Yeah, there you go, there it is." He said, "Oh, okay, well, then I'm becoming once in a month. You teach, and then we see how it goes." And I didn't have really much of a choice. I just been saying, "Yeah, okay, well,
Right.
yeah, okay, well." But that was thing which I start enjoying it with time. So as on the beginning was very overwhelming. Now I cannot imagine to
Yeah.
not teach. So it kind of, I wonder if he done it on purpose or seen something in me or just coincidence. But sometimes the circumstances force you to step up instead of just you choosing to step up. You are pushed to it.
Yeah.
It's like thrown on a deep water. You're doing it or not. As I always quote in my club, the quote from the Drago from a Rocky: "If it dies, it dies." So if he dies, he dies. So that's how I end up being a teacher. So.
Oh, that's cool. I always admire, like you said, you didn't know if it was by design or not, but I always admire the people who can do that by design, where they can see it,
Mm,
they make the decision to trust that it will happen, and then truly just step out and let it happen. Because I'm not very good at that, the stepping out part. I can see that it would probably go, I can see what's probably needed, but the idea of then just going completely hands off, I'm not very good at that. So it's
mm,
cool. I'm always impressed when there are people who can see so far ahead, make that decision, and then commit to it and watch it unfold and let
mm.
it unfold, whether it happens or doesn't. I think that's really cool when people do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not the person either yet. I think I'm not. I have to grow my gray beard and mustaches and then be a true master to see things like that. At the moment, I'm
That's right.
just in the field. And how's your finger? What's the predictions when you're gonna be okay doing stuff and so on? I see you
Yeah, I'm
prepare.
not.
I see in your background you preparing all the tools that you can actually chop off all your fingers.
I could just take them all off. Yeah, yeah. That's my training wall. When the house gets quiet, I go over to that wall and just grab something and do some work. No, the finger is good. We're working on. You can kind of see, unless you're listening to this only. We're working on extension, something that we have that we do naturally better as humans is flexion, closing our
Yeah, yeah.
hands. And it's even worse when you're a martial artist because you spend a lot of time closing your hands and developing grip strength and stuff like that. And so I'm struggling, my body is struggling to let that finger know how to be straight. It wants to
Hmm.
just close in and stay closed. So we're working on that. I just got out of a cast. I've been getting new casts every week where they straighten it and they cast it, and then I wear that for a few days and I take it off and they straighten it further and they cast it again. It's going really well. It's moving now. I'm having to learn how to close it again because it's now been stretched the other way, but I'm starting to be able to close and grab things and make a fist and that. And that's awesome. It's going really well. I feel like enough time is passing by that the healing is happening. I think we're supposed to start strengthening next week. I should be in really good shape by June when I come visit. I should be in really good shape.
So interesting that they actually put in a cast. I would think that they would like wanna your extension work with the muscles instead of. Is it the joint that is lacking the
So,
mobility
and you're
into
right.
it?
It's tendons and that kind of stuff. What it was, so we didn't cast for a long time. I thought I'd be in a cast right away. I actually was never in a cast until just a few
Hmm.
weeks ago. But what it was they had so much concern about how much it was not getting extension and how little it was taking to the exercises
Hmm.
that they wanted to hold it so that it could get stretched out. They figured
So
that flexion,
like a passive stretch, right?
yeah. Yeah, so they would, like I said, we started, I think it was at like 50 degrees, and they, pulled it out to like 40 degrees and cast it. And I'd go through the week, and there was enough that I could work extension exercises in the cast, just actively kind of working against the cast, trying to get, if I get anything right now, I'd like to get the tip of my finger moving.
Hmm.
It doesn't, so closing my hand is mostly hard because I can't actually bend the
All
tip of my
right.
finger. I got a little bit more of that when it was cast. And so each time, so it would passively stretch maybe 10 degrees. They'd take the cast off, they'd put a new one on, and they'd passively stretch it another 10 degrees. And they'd keep that going. And now they've got me to a splint, and we're seeing how that goes to where I can get back to doing my exercises while wearing a splint that kind of stands in place of the cast and keeps that stretch happening, where I'm spending more time splinted, but I'm able to take it off for a while, do some movement, and put it back on.
Mm. Very interesting. I knew that there's something in a kickboxer, passive stretching on the ropes, just put him in a position and keep him there will work.
That's right. That's right.
So pretty much you've got that
Yeah.
treatment on your finger now. But yeah, it's
Yes.
great that. But you said that the sensitivity is different on the top and the bottom, right? When they attach did they attach the nerves or they just
Yep.
use the skin and graft it on?
Um, I don't know about the nerves if they attach. They said that the way they put it is that those would self-heal. So I don't think they specifically addressed the nerves. I think the nerves kind of addressed themselves. I think that's part of why it ended up that way. Is they kind of naturally went to the inside of the hand, and now they're working to kind of reconnect to the outside of the hand, and so that's kind of leaving that there. So they reattached the tendons. They had to, I'd obviously severed that extensor tendon entirely. It was gone. Bone was gone. There was all kinds of stuff, but they over time, I've noticed that sensitivity is not quite as bad underneath, and I'm getting a little more feeling in the top. So I am noticing a change. I still do things like, I mean, it was just yesterday I burnt my hand on the pan again. You go to do something and the lip of the pan is there and you don't know your
Mm.
fingers there and you just set it down and sear it off. So that's always fun. But it was, what was interesting to me is they used a lot of vibrations. So they had like this little hand vibrator that you would take and just kind of vibrate the finger to kind of desensitize it because they actually were worried about it being too sensitive when it came out
Mhm.
of the splint for the first time. So instead, when they take it off, I would just hit it with that vibrating motor to desensitize it. So that was something I kind of didn't really know about that
Mm.
does make a difference. And so I still will do that from time to time. I'll work on that to just let it get used to. Because while it was cool having all that extra feeling, it could be very painful.
Mm. For sure. It's a different sensations. Our brain doesn't want to know what to do really with it, isn't it? It can be
Yeah.
overwhelming. I'm just guessing. I'm looking
Yeah.
my finger and going, yeah, yeah, maybe. But I've never been in a situation like that. So,
Yeah, it's weird things, like you pick up something hot and it's way hotter than you think it should be. You grab like a cold drink and it feels like you picked up like you're holding ice. Just a really weird situation with how that overall that kind of feeling is.
mm. You've got a bear or a dog there?
I've got a dog. I got a dog. She's 16. She's got a partially collapsed trachea and a
Oh,
wheelchair
wow.
and everything, and she gets to moving around. Yeah, you give me this dog. You give me this dog. She's in her prison shirt today.
Oh, wow. Hello, dog.
But she's doing good. We got her name is Lucy because we figured she'd have a lot of splaining to do,
Hmm.
and um, she's doing good. Like I said, she's 16. She kind of lost feeling in her legs, and we got her a little wheelchair, and she was like a new dog again, and it's cruising around, and it's pretty cool.
Cool. Um, any thoughts on the end? Obviously, I'm really looking forward to have you here in UK. I hope that you guys gonna join in as well because it's gonna be fantastic event with two, three great guys, Christian,
Yeah.
yourself, and myself. Yeah,
I'm really excited. My thoughts for the end is like that's it. That's all I'm thinking about, especially as we get closer and closer. So I'm really excited to get there to share some of these philosophies and these things. I've been spending a lot of time I devote a lot of my time to my craft and jiu-jitsu, eskrima, karate, aikido, tai chi. Like there's all these different things that I've done and invested in that have informed my thinking and have boiled down to my approach to things. I've been spending a lot of time simplifying that approach and applying these things I've picked up through dedicated study, and I'm excited to share that with people. Just my approach, the Kenfu approach to training, and this, and some universal concepts and stuff. So really excited to meet everyone. I hope so many people want to come. I want to see everybody and train and talk and get to train with you, Les, get to train with Christian. Just looking forward to all of it. So I hope people are too.
and just I realized just today, so you guys have to come because Ken is taking 3 flights to get here. It's not the direct flight. He's going three
That's
flights. He's
right.
gonna be flying 2 days. So if that not makes you feel guilty to come and train, I don't know what
That's
will.
right. That's right. Come see me. I'll be tired. No.
I can. Thank you very much for your time and always pleasure
Thank
to
you
talk
so
to
much,
you.
Les.
And we see you soon.
All right. We'll see you later.